What is going on, my tacticians, and welcome to the first ever edition of Tactical Analysis. This is the series where I'm going to be taking a look at people's video code submissions for battle videos and such, and I will be analyzing their strategies and such and trying to figure out how could they improve their gameplay. So if you've got a battle code you want to submit for tactical analysis, you just want some tips, you want some advice, well, just put it down in the comments section, or just if you happen to be in my Discord server, put it in the channel that I will link to you in the description of this video. But in any case, let's get on with the battle and let's get on with the analysis. Alright, so turn 1, you're facing off against a Hariyama and you send out your Infernape. Now, there are two ways this can go down. If your Infernape knows Fake Out, you will outspeed their Hariyama and Fake Out their Hariyama before they can Fake you out. If they knew the move, I don't know, Inner Focus perhaps, they could prevent the Fake Out, or they could, protect that turn. And that will do one of two things. You'll learn something about them the first turn, but this is basically the stage where you have to gauge what your opponent's strategy is, what their overall goal is. So if they fake you out, then that means they're doing one of two things. They're trying to weaken you down for a super powerful hit, or they're trying to stall one turn extra so that they can get their ability off. Alright, now we've learned something about this Hariyama. Now that we're going into turn 2, we've learned a little something about this Hariyama, JP. And this is what you need to adapt your strategy when you're moving on. You can't let Pokemon as frail but as powerful as your Infernape just go for free. So if you're going to go for the offense, you have to make sure that you can knock them down in some way. Now, you let your opponent fake you out first. That's not something you want to be doing with an Infernape. Infernape does not have the bulk to survive many powerful hits. In fact, it would be very surprising if it could survive what this Hariyama is going to throw down your way. And unfortunately, I can tell you aren't going to survive that because you don't have the bulk or the HP to survive such a hit. So, what have we learned from this with this Hariyama? It's not Guts. It doesn't have the Guts ability, which means it has the Sheer Force ability. It has either Sheer Force or Thick Fat. And we saw that it took way more damage for Thick Fat. So we now know that we have a Sheer Force Hariyama. That's the ability. So this is where we can go from here. We can go into our next Pokemon that can either deal with such a thick force or a sheer force Hariyama, or we can go for something that can, force the Hariyama to switch out. So we're gonna move into the next turn, and you'll see what I mean. Alright, now that we've seen what the Hariyama is capable of, you've switched into your Weavile. Not the greatest choice when dealing with a Pokemon like this, but since we have learned that it is indeed Sheer Force Hariyama, and now that it's lost some of its defenses with that close combat ability, now we can expect one of two things to happen. If your opponent suspects that you've got something like, say, Aerial Ace up your sleeve, then they're not going to stay in. They're not going to let you knock out their Hariyama for free. You have to expect that their opponent will not let you knock out their Pokemon for free. If they can try to save it, they're going to try and save it and preserve their Pokemon for later on in the fight. So this is where you have to play the mind games. Do you suspect they are going to swap out? If you can, then you can use a different move that will either be neutral or super effective. If you go for, say, the knockoff here, if you had knockoff or something like that, or even Night Slash, you could go for it safely here and suspect one of two things will happen. Either A, they guess your plan and they'll take a bit of damage from your hit, because even if it is reduced damage because of it not being very effective, the Night Slash on top of the defense drop from the close combat should be enough to knock out the Hariyama. Or they'll switch out the Hariyama and take a bit more damage because of that powerful Night Slash coming from the Weavile. Alright, using Fake Out on Weavile is a pretty good option. However, you want to be using Weavile with the Fake Out in your first turn when it's your opening Pokemon, so you can deal damage and figure out what kind of game they're going for. Are they trying to do something else, or are they trying to, trying to set up or so? This is where you learn from your first turn what their plan is. So, using Fake Out in this position, not the smartest move you could have done. Like I said before, you could have gone for the Night Slash, dealt some decent damage here, but it's not the worst situation. You've learned a bit more about what their strategy is. They're trying to preserve the Hariyama for later on in the fight. This is where you can play the mind games again. Now you're facing down a Swampert. Now you have to figure out what kind of Swampert is it? What is it going to do? So we're moving on down the road. We're looking at this next turn here. You swapped in your Noivern, and your opponent goes for a Stealth Rock. It's not the worst situation. I mean, I've suffered Stealth Rocks before, but this is not the kind of situation you want your Noivern to be facing. It's really frail. It doesn't have a lot of power, or at least a lot of bulk to survive a lot of hits. It needs to deal a lot of damage. It needs to deal it fast. Now, when Swampert goes from its regular form to its mega form, it does gain a lot of natural bulk. But if you're gonna use Noivern, especially against a mega, what you want to do is use the power of its abilities and use its stab moves. If you have a stab move such as Draco Meteor, now would be the good time to use it. Power down the mega. Do whatever damage you can, because let me assure you, Mega Swamperts carry Ice Punch. There are very few Mega Swamperts out there that do not carry Ice Punch, and Noivern is times 4 weakness to Ice. It will not survive that hit. So I would suggest using a Draco Meteor. Sure, you're gonna lose Noivern, but do what you can. Try to deal with the Swampert. Don't let it get up. Don't let it stay up for at least 2 turns. So we're continuing on with the battle, and we're looking at another turn in which the Mega Swampert is now still up. Now, this is not a fault on your team, JP, but you need Pokemon that are super tanky. The reason why you want to mix your team up with sweepers, walls, and general Pokemon, as I once demonstrated, as I once talked about in one of my previous videos, the reason why you want a wall is so that you can endure these really powerful hits from Pokemon like Mega Swampert that can endure those hits, that can give you the time you need to formulate a strategy and perhaps even weaken the opponent in some way. Now, I know your play style when it comes to Blade, your Haxorus. You like to put the Choice Scarf on it, you like to give it that super fast hit, you like to go in for the Outrage. Outrage here would have been great had you gone for something like Draco Meteor with your Noivern. However, Mega Swampert is really bulky in the defenses. Physical attacks are not really gonna phase the Swampert unless they're grass type moves, which are Mega Swampert's biggest weakness. So your best bet here is if you were Adamant Natured and you had the Choice Scarf and you went for the Outrage. If you were Adamant Natured, maybe you could deal more damage. So we'll just keep watching this video and see how this goes. Alright, we've gone down the line and we finally knocked out the Mega Swampert. Unfortunately, now we're dealing with the Hariyama. Now we're dealing with the problem of our previous turns. If we had been able to knock out Sumo Snail, the Hariyama here, we probably wouldn't be having to deal with it now. The reason why is because we know it has Fake Out. We know it has Sheer Force. We know what it wants to do. And since our Haxorus took a beating from the Mega Swampert because it couldn't finish it off in that one turn, well, there's nothing we can do. We're locked into the Choice Band. We can't swap out our Haxorus. All we can do now is wait for the Fake Out, which we know is going to come, and we know there's nothing we can do to stop it. Now, continuing with our analysis, we have to suspect that our opponent knows that now that we brought in Weavile again, We have to suspect our opponent knows what we're going to do. He knows we have the fake out. He knows we may have aerial ace. We may have something to deal with him. If you reveal the aerial ace and the fake out from before, we're in a bit of a pickle here. I don't think you revealed the aerial ace, but at the same time, if you don't go for a fake out here, he's gonna suspect you're going to try faking him out, so that the following turn you would go for something like Night Slasher, so to finish off the Hariyama. This is where you have to suspect the mind games to come in. This is where you need to guess what your opponent is going to do. Think 2 steps ahead of him. You know he knows that you have fake out. You know that he knows his Hariyama cannot stand much longer. It's not a glass cannon, but it is a really tanky cannon. It can take the hit, but it's too weak to endure those hits for long. So if you suspect that he's not going to keep his Hariyama in, you've seen he's willing to swap it out the moment your Weavile comes in, especially since you revealed that fake out. You have to suspect that he's going to swap it out into something else. This is where you go again. Pull out the Night Slash. Go for that stab damage. Go for as strong a hit as possible. Take the risk. Maybe you can get the lucky crit. One of 2 things will happen. You'll either get a lucky crit, you'll do a lot of damage, or you'll get neutral damage, maybe enough to knock out the next Pokemon the next turn. Either way, now is the time to play that card. If you go for something like your Aerial Ace, which I know you have, you might knock out the Hariyama, or you might just reveal your Aerial Ace and not do a whole lot of damage, which is probably what's going to happen in the turn. I know what's going to happen, but for the audience, well, they're about to find out what happens. Alright, JP, I'm just gonna say this. While I love the idea of a special attacking Dredigan, it's not exactly a Pokemon that people are going to fear. Most people suspect a physical attacking Dredigan, and if you had had the physical attacker, you probably would have knocked out this Pokemon really easily with very little effort. However, I do like you do have some bulk. If you had swapped into your Dredigan, even if it's just to endure that physical hit, it would have allowed you to get the free swap in for your Weavile to get, say, another turn to go for a fake out attack. If that is where you can make your plays. It is okay to use a Pokemon as pardon the phrase, a sacrificial pawn, but it will at least give your Pokemon a free swap in, especially for fake out Pokemon such as Weavile. However, a special attacking Dredigan is not exactly something people are going to be afraid of, as, well, you're about to find out. Alright, for our final analysis of this team in this battle, the first thing I'm going to say is, I love the Barbarical. I love what you're going to do with this Barbarical. However, Barbarical needs that Shell Smash setup. You need the Shell Smash on it, otherwise it's going to have a real hard time against opponents, especially the opponents running legendary Pokemon. You need to run that, I'm sorry to say it, but you need to run the Shell Smash, especially if your opponent knows that it's your last Pokemon. They're not going to stay in, especially with one of their Pokemon. They're going to try to BM you. They're just going to show how strong they are. They're not going to give you that chance. So if you go for a Barbarical that runs, say, a Shell Smash, your best bet is one of 2 things. Either A, they swap out and give you that free setup, which most people will try to do. They will try to get their Pokemon out of dodge as soon as possible so that they can preserve them for later on in fights. Or 2, they stay in and knock you out. Either way, you're in a really tough bind, but you still could pull this back if you had set up. Pokemon that set up in singles are the ones that have the most success, because they don't have to worry about multiple attacks from multiple Pokemon. They only have to worry about one Pokemon, the one that they're facing. If the opponent is going to swap out, going to protect, or going to do something silly shenanigans like that, like try to set up, then they can set up themselves, and that gives them the time to play the game they want to. This is why strategies such as Choice Scarf Rock Slide, for example, just endless flinches, Serene Grace Air Slash, those are just so dominant. They don't have to worry about being counter-attacked very much because they can pull off those moves. They don't have to worry about what is the partner Pokemon going to do like you would have to in doubles. When you switch from doubles to singles, these are the things you have to worry about. So you need to set up, if you're going to go into singles, you need some kind of strategy like that. Relying solely on doubles Pokemon is not going to actually win in singles. I myself know this as an example. I try running doubles Pokemon in singles. They don't always win. Sometimes they do, but most of the time they don't, especially for teams that are prepared for singles battles. So if you had gone for the setup here, you could have done so much more work with this Barbarical. But without the setup, without the Shell Smash, you're too slow, you don't have the firepower, you don't have the speed, and against the Shaman, well... All in all, JP, your team is effective, your team is strong, however, it lacks bulk. It just lacks something to, stand as a wall for your team, to stand there, hold their ground, endure powerful hits, give your team the time to set up, to strategize, figure out a game plan for what you're going to do and what the opponent may do. Your Pokemon, they hit hard, they hit fast, but they don't stand their ground very much, especially against these bulky physical Pokemon that don't have to worry about outspeeding the opponent. If they can take the hit, they'll take the hit. They'll just come back at you with something stronger. That is what the Swampert did, that is what the Hariyama did, and that is exactly what basically this entire team you're facing is doing. So, in any case, I hope you all enjoyed this tactical analysis. I hope you learned something, JP. I hope you all learned something. And I hope to see you in future tactical analysis videos. I am Imperator Davies, your Fedora Mushroom. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye!
I'm taking in what I can get, but I can't find the answers yet. Head in the water, slow my mind. I hold my breath until I'm found.